thanks a ton. Given that this is the first of hopefully series of events we'll do along with Nexus, maybe I'll give a brief intro on why we are doing what we are doing. Basically, Build for Creators, an attempt to, at least for some of us, to better understand what all is happening in the creative economy, and also get people like Ranjeet and Tanmay to share their learning, their experiences on new age technologies, trends, business models that are emerging in this area. Today's session, think of it, we are trying to do a more an overarching session on mapping the creator economy. And I think there are no two better guests than Ranjeet and Tanmay. Both of them don't need any introduction, but I think what is interesting is the mix. Ranjeet is building an aggregator platform to help people display their creativity. Tanmay is a star creator himself. So we'll hopefully get to hear views from different sides of the table.
Rahul, I'll correct you. There's no two better people who said yes to this panel.
That's not the
I'm
case.
sure there are people who are more qualified than me. But there are no two people who said yes to this.
But I was just Googling on Tanmay on the latest numbers. He's like, I thought maybe he's a big celebrity on Instagram. He has like 1.5 million followers there. Then I went to YouTube. He has 3.7 million followers there. Then I went to Twitter, and Twitter, is known for a nerdy base. He has like 6.7 million followers there.
Yeah, I was an early user of Twitter from 2009. तो ट्विटर ने मेरे को कुछ सालों के लिए वो जब कोई भी नया यूजर साइन अप करता है तो कुछ ऑटो फॉलो हो जाते हैं अंडर एंटरटेनमेंट आई वाज ऑन दैट तो मुझे बहुत सारे मिलियंस ऐसे ही मिल गए बिना कुछ काम किए so thanks Twitter for that weird policy.
And Pratik, I think Ranjeet has built Pratilipi, which must be one of the largest UGC platforms in India. I was again reading some stats, some 400,000 writers, 30 million DAUs, and really writing for what mass Indian consumers want to consume, right? So without further ado, we'll get started. Just few tips for folks. We'll try to have, Pratik and Anagh ask few questions from Ranjit and Tanmay. We'll limit it to first 30 minutes. In that time frame, if you have any question, please type it in the Q&A box. Post that, we'll concentrate the next half an hour only on audience question. The idea is to make it more interactive, and hopefully I always feel audience ask more interesting questions and more insightful questions than people out here. So why don't we get started?
Maybe I'll start. And by the way, one tidbit I would also give here, that Ranjeet and Tanmay, both of you started in the space before the word content startup, creator economy, Indian language platform, all these things were hot. So you were, and that's the cool thing about it, that you effectively created the ecosystem for all of us to ride on. And without further ado, I'll start with Ranjeet first. And just to kick off the conversation, Ranjeet, you have been seeing effectively creators coming on the platform, not only on Pratilipi, but also on other platforms and other formats since some time. What is changing now that the ecosystem is at a tipping point? What is it about the following of the creators? Is it about the type of content being created? In your mind, what is the trigger point that is pushing the economy forward now? And once you start from there, we'll dive deeper and peel the onion better.
Sure. So I think there is one real change and one imaginary change. So the real change essentially is that for any kind of marketplace or any kind of ecosystem, usually till things get to a tipping point, they operate in a certain manner, which is very, very different from when things go beyond that tipping point. The example that I usually give to people is something like a Ola or Uber. Like the tipping point is probably somewhere around when you can get a cab in 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 minutes versus when you can't. Like waiting for half an hour for a cab is not really a very good experience. But once you start getting a cab in 5 minutes or 6 minutes or anything below that, then it suddenly becomes a magical experience. For other platforms or other ecosystems, the same logic holds true. So I think once the ecosystem got to a point when there are enough creators creating high quality content, then for consumers, it became obvious that they started focusing more and more and more on that. Then what that essentially did is that other people, smart people, wanted to work in those companies or build those products. So there were more developers who started doing that. Then VC ecosystem also started noticing that because the demand was increasing. So all of that kind of comes together. So in fact, I remember when we started building Pratilipi, people were asking that in nowhere in the world at that time, which now is funny, have people ever paid for digital content? Today, Netflix and Spotify like are two of the largest companies in the world. Netflix for sure, and bunch of other companies, of course, Tencent and bunch of others. So it's not that. And after that, people said, by the way, that's US. In India, that will never happen. And now it's happening in India. Hotstar has, I think, 40 million plus subscribers now. So it's not that US suddenly has changed or India has suddenly changed. In fact, I have always said that this is obvious that it's going to happen. It's just a function of time. It's about somebody got to that enough critical mass where people are willing to pay for it. So that's the real change. The second change is more imaginary. So sometimes what happens is, and as VCs, you have probably seen that more often than I have, that sometimes some people start talking about things, so other people start talking about things, so other people start talking about this, and suddenly it becomes like a big hype machine. So it's and that is right now true for content and creator economy. It's not that the fundamentals have really changed that much, except for the ecosystem itself maturing. It's just that suddenly a lot more people are talking about it. So it seems like something new has happened. At least that's my viewpoint.
Thank you. And Tanmay, on the same lines, from your vantage point, the earlier, and I remember when I met you first, you talked about creating a writer academy, and you said that the supply of content creators or writers is not as good, and it needs to be improved. From your vantage point, when you started, the quality of creators were one type, and over time it has improved. What has led to that change, and what are the ecosystem trends you are seeing around quality of creators being improving, and their intent towards going to platforms and thinking of this as a full-time career changing?
Sorry, can you pinpoint one part of that question so I can answer each part? Can you be more specific?
So how has the creator mindset changed over the past 7-8 years? What were they focusing on then? What were the challenges then, and how has it evolved today? Would love to learn from you.
I think since when I started, right, like the number of possible platforms for distribution has increased tenfold. Then the tools to create have increased tenfold. Today, being a creator takes 5x less effort than much earlier, but some problems still remain the same, right? Like I think Ranjeet mentioned Netflix, right? Like I don't know if anyone saw the Reed Hastings earnings call. Is Reed Hastings ko bhi India se paise nikalwane ki dikkat hai, right? We all like to look at the 1,000 True Fans article that went viral a few years ago. That's sort of the birth of the creator economy, this thing. But the reality of our country is very different, right? Like you have to be at a certain scale. So I like to look at creators in this country in multi-tiers, right? There's a top tier with your Bhuvans and Ashish's, who, if you ask them, there is still a significant gap in how much money they would make from branded content and how much money they would make from an audience, right? So I think a lot of creator economy players that I talk to, this is the foremost framework, because they come to me and they'll be like, how would you use this, etc., etc. And I'm like, I might not be the ideal user for this because the delta is never going to be high enough for me to make more money from here than I would advertising for bingo chips or whatever else that is, right? There is a huge layer 2, layer 3 of creators who are monetizing in many interesting ways. Like it's a kid from Rajasthan who gives IAS notes. Okay, he makes fantastic IAS notes, right? He's probably pulling in 20 lakh rupees, right? So if he gets interesting tools to be able to streamline this, that'll be great. So I think there are multiple tiers of creators now. Earlier, because distribution was limited, you'd be able to see just one tier because they would pop on one platform. But now there are multiple tiers. Monetization is still, to me, a problem. The creators making the most amount of wealth are usually either phenomenal teachers, who have a large following on YouTube, who get big contracts from the teaching platforms, or they are finance creators, which is basically the Hopium, Hopium layer, which is, you'll be able to make more money. I think for the other tiers, there'll be fashion and beauty and makeup. All those verticals are getting unlocked now, where I think affiliate revenue will play a big role. So in that sense, it's gotten layered. There are a lot more opportunities, there are a lot more tools at your disposal. That has been the major change. I remember a time where branded content se paisa banta raha, but now that's changed to a certain degree. So yeah, I don't know if I answered your question, but yeah, it's changed drastically with the number of avenues and number of platforms that have opened up.
Tanmay, like as a side, and would love to get Ranjeet's view on this same thing as well. There is this talk about the consumer pull moving from platforms to individuals. That content is getting much more individualized. Instead of thinking, yeah, let's check out YouTube, I'll probably going, let's see what Tanmay has uploaded today. Like the power on the consumer, the hold on that is shifting from platforms to individuals. Do you agree with this? And if yes, like any tangible examples or any trends that you are excited about here?
Ranjit, do you want to go first? You have the best of both worlds here.
I actually think that you would probably know better. I might be a little bit biased. So my experience has been that there is a symbiotic relationship between both, and it's very, very difficult for one to exist without another. So the reason is less of monetization, by the way. Like big name creators can monetize outside of YouTube, for example, Instagram or ShareChat or Pratilipi or whatever else. That is not the difficult part. Once you already have an audience, you would already have some super fans. You would already have some credibility. You would already have some relationships. The problem is not that. The problem is that you have no way to increase your audience from there. So if you look at, for example, Twitch, it's one of my favorite companies, and I also think as a product, actually, not favorite company, it's a favorite product. But also if YouTube did its job well, Twitch shouldn't have existed at all. So like almost all the streamers on Twitch that I follow, they spend 50% of their time on Twitch and 50% on YouTube. They make 99% of their revenue from Twitch and 1% from YouTube. But if they stop spending time on YouTube, their number of subscribers on Twitch go down to 0 as a new subscribers, because new subscribers still come from YouTube. So the premise here is the platforms are important if you are looking 2, 3, 4, 5 years out. If you're looking at, okay, last month I made whatever, let's say 5 lakh rupees. If I leave YouTube, can I still make 5 lakh rupees next month? You probably can if you have that level of credibility already. But 5 years later, can you make 50 lakhs? For that, you need platforms. That has been my experience. So people, for example, there have been some writers, when I say some, I mean like some thousands, simply because of scale, who have left Pratilipi. They have tried to join either other platforms or make their own websites and blogs. And after a year or year and a half or 2, then they come back, because they realize that their super fans followed them. But after that, increasing that audience from there is very, very expensive.
Yeah, I agree. There's a symbiotic relationship, right? I think to zero in on what Ranjit said, I think when with the breadth of a platform and the depth of a platform, discoverability can unlock 0 to 1 for a creator, right? Whereas I think individuals who already built distribution will be able to mimic that if they move to other platforms. Given Twitch's example, many streamers left Twitch. They did go to a bunch of other platforms. Valkyrie right now has a YouTube exclusive deal and whatnot. So I think the key is distribution. I think platforms play a very important role in discovering new superstar individuals. And if a platform has that depth, it's possible to take a creator from 0 to 1. Then when a creator is able to scale themselves from 1 to 10, how strong the platform is what determines whether the creator wants to leave. For example, if you port from Instagram to YouTube, you're not going to get everybody onto YouTube, right? But if you notice, all the folks who are massive on YouTube, they have a following on Instagram, and it's not vice versa. I know Instagram creators who have started YouTube channels but aren't able to get the same kind of numbers on YouTube. So I think a platform does play an important role. I mean, to me, it's very simple, right? Like if you're able to make creators money, creators will stick around. I think that's the key. Especially, but with India, there's a slight difference. There's a status angle attached to it also. Everybody wants to be a creator, to be, we are status first and then money later. ये वो देश है जहाँ पे क्रिएटर बेचने से पहले 2 बार सोचता है कि मैं क्या बेचू लगूंगा नहीं लगूंगा. इसको इस कंट्री को कैपिटलिज्म ठीक से समझ में नहीं आता है. आज भी अगर there's a reason why you have to always be like this in front of your audience, etc. So वो एक game तक now it's starting to happen because now it's so obvious that hey, creators are trying to monetize. But I think the day that flips, Twitch पे बहुत अलग है. Twitch पे लोग एक दूसरे को subs gift करते हैं, creator target रखता है कि आज 100 membership चाहिए. यहाँ पे कोई ऐसा बोलेगा तो instantly ये तो बस पैसे कमाने के लिए आया है, So India has a very weird relationship between creators and audience. That's slowly changing, right? I think Kunal had once said this, we're trying to adopt capitalism with socialist blood. So it's a very tricky time. There has to be, some creators have done it really. I think Ankur Warikoo has cracked that so beautifully. He's done it really well. there's a lot of give and take. But yeah, it's a symbiotic relationship. And I think platforms play an important role. But once the individual scales and gets distribution, then it's up to the individual to figure out what helps him monetize in the best way.
That we are on the topic of platforms, Ranjeet and Tanmay, like any newer or emerging platforms or India specific platforms that you are excited about? Of course, we are all excited about Pratilipi, but would love to get your views on other platforms also, like which you think can end up coming in other than YouTube, Instagram, Twitch.
I don't want it to sound like a plug, and I think it has already sounded once. Okay. So
please plug, please.
It's not about a particular company, but I'm giving an example of that company because that's one that I'm closer with. But it's more about the kind of company that I'm talking about. So there is a company that we are currently incubating called Grow91. The overall premise essentially is that for an audience, as Tanmay touched upon earlier, audience is important, social proof is important, and money is important. And it's not always going to be the case that the same platform is really great at all three. It's possible, but it's not always the case. It's very, very difficult. In fact, as we spoke about YouTube earlier, YouTube has insane engagement, not that good at monetization. That's usually true for different platforms. So what Grow91 essentially is trying to do, and again, it's not about Grow91 at all. It's basically about a bunch of companies that are trying to do this, is that if you as a creator, you already have an audience, what if you don't have to switch off that audience? What if you don't have to worry about, okay, I either have everything on YouTube or I have nothing on YouTube? What if you use YouTube for the engagement, but I give you a different way to monetize so much better? So use that audience and people who are interested in that audience, you can essentially provide other services that they value. It could sometimes be merchandise, for example. It could sometimes be courses, for example. It could sometimes be exclusive content in the form of subscription, for example. It could be something else. But the basic premise is like one platform. Think of it like essentially Amazon versus Shopify. So there is Amazon, which basically says, okay, come here and buy this and that and whatever. And if you're a seller, essentially you have very, very limited control on like what you can do on Amazon. Versus Shopify says that you're a seller, you generate demand, and almost everything else on the tech side at least is taken care of rates. What Grow91 essentially saying is, you are a seller, you essentially bring demand, we will take care of not just the tech stuff, but we'll take care of supply chain, we'll take care of returns, we'll take care of manufacturing, we'll take care of everything else that you can think of. And if there is a widget that you don't want to use us for, you want to use a third-party platform for that, perfectly fine, just like Shopify. Just include another widget for a new service. You want to sell t-shirts, but you want to sell it via Teespring and not Grow91, fine, just install a Teespring widget and sell it via that. So I think, again, it's not about Grow91, but I think something like this, which can provide a better, more comprehensive monetization across different streams, that can be insanely valuable.
Yeah, I think let's go through the different. There's live streaming platforms. I think it's going to be hard to disrupt YouTube in India purely because discoverability is far too high, or you have to hemorrhage a lot of money to buy the YouTube stars to be able to do that. Then comes the Shopify for creator angle, right? That I'm fairly intrigued by. Okay, because there's a lot of ideas floating around about, creators selling merch, right? To me, I don't know how big that market is. I've sold merch. I've tried. I've had a distribution. I've tried it. I just don't know how big that is. I think there is a big market for digital good selling, right? Again, I'm going top layer of creators will probably make more money from everything else. Then there's a whole second and third layer. There's a lot of digital good selling that's possible, in which there are a bunch of different players, right? There's a lot of paywall in front of a WhatsApp group kind of products, which I think some of them are very interesting. I think those will find some traction in the second, third layer of creators. Then I think it's harder to sell your own product than if you can make a piece of the revenue by selling existing products that people already want, right? So I think affiliates is a section that people haven't cracked yet. The only affiliates that have truly been cracked are finance related affiliates, right? I think there are dozens of creators making crores of rupees through all your broker exchanges. So I think there especially in beauty, makeup, lifestyle, I think there's that whole layer that exists. I think the fact that Amazon affiliates is not popular enough is an opportunity for a bunch of companies. So there's a little nuance here, but there are some of these that I think have an opportunity in India, especially given this low trust country, etc., etc. So I think individuals have that trust, and I think those layers to be able to monetize that trust are going to be built in the next couple of years. Anyway, Instagram खरीद लेगा किसी को भी तो ज़्यादा फटेगा तो so eventually. So I guess my answer is Instagram. I'm very excited about Instagram launching all these future products.
I don't think there's a company that exactly does this right now. I think there are a few, especially Kutum, which is similar lines, but not exactly, which is essentially about a Discord, but which works in India. Discord is insanely powerful. I have been a fan as a company
Phenomenal.
for like 5-6 years. If I had money, I would have invested back then.
Yeah.
But I think like for India and Indian bandwidth and Indian consumers as well, Indian use cases, it's a little bit too complex. But if you can build some sort of a private social networks, I think as creator economy keeps on growing, that will continue to become more and more valuable.
It's a great point. Discord is the most powerful bad product I've ever used. All right. I hate the product, but it's so insanely powerful that I love it. Right. He's absolutely right. One of the insights that I had was, I think there is a play to be made in, and maybe DAOs are the answer, right? There's a play to be made in getting a piece of the upside of your whole audience and not necessarily making money off selling to them. This, I think, is where we're heading there. I think maybe DAOs can enable this. I'm doing self-plug. I'm doing Super Team DAO, experimenting in this space for that reason, which is being able to monetize the work. Discord is like what? Every gamer has a Discord. Every major YouTube creator has a Discord. It's a back office, right? Right now, it's used as a way to, acha event karte, karaoke night kiya, ye chess kiya, etc., etc. But there is no productivity layer that's been built inside Discord yet, and I think that time is gonna come. Akshay keeps saying that quantitative easing repriced assets, and I think this is we're entering the decade of repricing labor. I think we're going to start seeing that slowly.
Very exciting. And Tanmay, the examples you gave, I also think, like for example, Guru 91 works for few types of creators. And Tanmay, it might not work for your category of creation. It might work for some other category.
Sure.
Similarly, the WhatsApp payment example you gave, it works better for deep use cases like crypto, finance advice, but it might not work for high level use cases where the association with the creator is not as deeply transactional. And it's
astrology.
Yes, exactly. So there are different categories and different. So one differentiation is category of creation, and the other differentiation is level of creator. The top creator can do something else, second creator can do something else.
Absolutely.
But so beyond these examples, like taking a step back, for which of the tools, Instagram, YouTube, are very large. YouTube is, and I completely agree with you, YouTube is the biggest daddy out there. YouTube cannot be replaced, and it works well for so many types of creation that it's a phenomenally large player. However, YouTube, the reason we are talking about all these companies is that YouTube, Instagram, all these guys have not done a great job at helping creators monetize. So in your experience, all the experiments they have done, and we don't have access to all those experiments because we are not creators, what has worked for them, what has not worked for them, why? Like for example, Super Chat, does it work for creators? What type of creators does it work for? What experiments has Instagram done, which gives you confidence that Instagram will do a lot of these things? It would be good to get some insight around that. And Ranjeet, you have a perspective around Pratilipi monetization. Of course, I know it, but good to share that perspective on what experiments worked, what experiments did not work from a consumer perspective.
See, YouTube is I have a love-hate relationship with YouTube, right? Like I absolutely love the platform. I'm a product of YouTube, but I hate that it's such a massive, slow-moving ship, right? There are features that YouTube slowly copies from Twitch, which I think they should quickly copy. Okay, saying why are we wasting time? There are some obvious features that you should build in, like polls in chat. Took 8 months for polls in chat to come, but it's slowly happening. I think YouTube ad revenue in India is probably one of the lowest in the world. We are 1/10 of what the US does. Don't know how they can fix that, but it has significantly improved over the years. I now know enough YouTubers who went from just starting off YouTube to be able to quit their jobs, do it full time. I don't know if you know this creator called Gamer Fleet from Haldwani, one of India's top gamers now. He's a prime example of the potential of YouTube. So I won't disagree that YouTube can do a better job in helping creators monetize. But I don't think they've done an awful job either. I think they've definitely changed in the last 5 years. It's possible to have a career on YouTube. Second, Instagram is starting subscriptions, memberships. I'm very curious to see, because to me, YouTube is an event content consumption platform, right? Which is, oh, I'm coming here to watch a well-crafted video or coming to watch someone live. Instagram is a daily snack. I'm going to have it twice every hour. So there are two ways where creators can ask audiences to subscribe. Like, one is a clear utility-based thing, which is that, hey, you get exclusive content, and the other is you're part of my inner circle. So I think that behavior will start happening on Instagram a lot more, because the blue shiny thing that happens on Instagram, you want to see someone's daily life. I think you have a close affinity to that person. So I think when that feature launches, a lot of Instagram creators will suddenly start saying, I think making 50 grand a month from, if you have 100K subscribers, being able to make 50,000 rupees a month should become a lot more accessible from your people. So I think it'll free a lot of creators for sure. Over to you, Ranjeet.
First of all, I agree with Tanmay. I think and this I might be biased, but I think if YouTube was a founder-led company instead of being a management-led company, it is already insane. Don't get me wrong. Both India and globally, it's insanely powerful. But I think if only they were not just so itchy, okay, everybody analysts are saying I should launch this, let me launch this, and so on and so forth. I think YouTube would have been insane. It's still very, very wildly underappreciated just how powerful YouTube is.
Yes.
That, like, just in terms of sheer depth of engagement, by the way. And like that is essentially a leading indicator for everything else. Revenue for streamers, for example, was zero in US, at least. In other countries it might have been a couple of years back. Now, at least from what I've heard, it's already about 7-8% of Twitch. The leaked report of top Twitch streamers, almost everyone was making sizable money from YouTube as well. So that's just a quip. Outside of that, what we have seen is, at least, and again, this is true for Pratilipi's users, this may or may not be necessarily true. And this seems to be true for Twitch. It's much, much harder to get the first rupee out from a user. So when I was doing my MBA, I read about this penny gap, and I knew this, but I did not really appreciate just how powerful that is. So at Pratilipi, for example, on the literature product, we have two different types of subscription. One is superfan, one is premium. One is priced at 25 rupee, which is like 40 cents. One is priced at 150 rupees a month, which is about $2. And roughly 50% people choose this and 50% people choose this. Whenever we have tried to, so we haven't done too many experiments here, it's still relatively fairly new. But like price increase doesn't seem to have that much of an impact. Similarly, price decrease doesn't seem to have that much of an impact. Like people think a lot about paying the first rupee. But if they're paying 1 rupee, paying 3 rupee or 5 rupee or 7 rupee just doesn't seem like that big of a deal for vast majority of people. So I think that has been the biggest surprise. And again, it's not that I did not know this, it's just that even after knowing this, I was still underappreciating just how true that is. And the same seems true for most of the founders that I've been speaking with. Like outside of that, I think we are still figuring out, honestly. I think in a previous question, Tanmay was saying that even though monetization in India has done better than what we had in the past, there is still a long, long way to go. And I think that's definitely true. In terms of all the founders that I have either backed or that I advise, like monetization has become so much better in last 12 to 18 months versus even 2 years back for digital products, of course, like almost unbelievably better. And it's not about Pratilipi, it's not about any one company. It's like just true across the ecosystem, across use cases, anything non-tangible. Still obviously a long, long way to go.
True.
Great.
I mean, yeah, we all should be thankful for UPI and Reliance Jio for this, right? Like, I think Mr. Ambani had a great quote. Say, someone asked him about why don't you do more philanthropy? He was like, if Jio is a success, it was a great bet. If it's not, then it's philanthropy. So I think it's fair.
Great. Why don't we switch the format and maybe, have audience ask some questions? There are a few people who have typed the questions, so we'll maybe give preference to that. And then feel free to raise your hands. Also, Anagh can call folks, but try to limit the question to the topic we are discussing and try to limit it to max 1 line or 2 lines.
There's a nice one for Ranjeet. Okay. Hi, Ranjeet. Can you share experience before reaching the tipping point? How did you source creators initially? It's actually it's a very, very important problem, right? There's a lot of new platforms that, who keep reaching out to me saying, can you connect me to this creator? Can you connect me to that creator? And I think that's a slow moving way of doing it. Like, what did you do with Pratilipi that just got kickstarted?
So to be fair, and I have said this publicly before, this has been one of my two biggest mistakes as a CEO. We did not do nearly enough to seed the literature platform, like the original platform because of which Pratilipi is known. Many of you may not know that now we have other platforms. And I think that's literally one of my two biggest mistakes as a founder CEO, that we did not do much at all. What we did was that we, first thing that we did was like, so before starting Pratilipi, I had reached out to about 350 odd authors in trying to understand what the problem is in the first place. So I reached out to these people again when we decided, okay, this is what we are going to do. And some of them said yes, some of them said no. Then we did some bit of hustle, like reaching out to people randomly via blog sports, asking people for referral and so on and so forth, but not nearly enough. I think if we had done enough seeding in the early days, we would have still gotten to the same point, but we could have saved like 2 years, a year and a half, 2.5 years. But like we did not do it enough at all. That was one of the big mistakes.
One question, Tanmay, on that side. What are the creator problems you see that you think should be solved, and you would encourage entrepreneurs to solve?
What are the creator problems that I see? So I can tell you my personal problems, right? Like I think a lot of it's a treadmill being a creator, right? It's for me, it's been a 10-year long treadmill. I think if there's a way to accrue value as a creator, I think that would be an interesting way. I think now there's a lot of creators who are doing a lot of angel checks, and me and many others. I think there's that space which is enabling creators to get a piece of the upside. I think that I think is a problem that could be solved. But again, I'm talking about very select bunch of creators and not being totally broad. I think Ranjeet would be able to answer that more than me. I'm far too self-involved to have that macro picture, to be honest. Ranjeet, over to you.
I think it boils down to, so of course, in general, I think Pratik, you already know that I try to avoid using jargons. So like if you cut through all the jargon, if you go to actual basics, there are basically three things that a creator really cares about and will stick around for. They will talk about other things, but that's not why they'll stick around. They care for audience, they care for social proof, and they will care for monetization.
Yes.
If you are solving or if you are doing something that improves on one of these three, they will stick around. Otherwise, they will not. Like almost everything else, for example, better tooling, they will use it till the time a better tool comes along. Or like anything, almost anything else. Like these are the only three things, in my opinion, at least, for which a creator would stick around. So anything that can improve my monetization, that can give you more audience, or that can make me feel better about life, about my status in the society. Like I think these are the three things that audience would, creator always care.
100% would agree. ये तीन मतलब creator किसी का सगा नहीं है सिवाय Instagram, YouTube type का. If you are able to constantly supply these three things, then only you're able to keep the creator. Absolutely right. I agree. Status is like funny Indian. I mean, with an audience, status comes automatically, right? YouTube does this very smartly, right? 100K पहुंचने पे आज भी gold silver play button आ जाता है. आज भी आता है, right? Like it's insane how that's become a milestone in a creator's life. Like I see 18-year-old creators now putting up a picture saying, I've had a dream since I was a child, since I was 10 years old, that one day I will get this play button and all. And you know, that's insane how YouTube has managed to give that status as well.
I've promoted Mayank. I've brought him from the audience. Hey Mayank, you had an interesting question around reels and shorts. Do you want to ask that?
Sure. So I just wanted to understand that basically with the tendency becoming more towards TikTok-like content, there is a bunch of creators who are essentially, experts who are making fashion hauls, unboxing gadgets, etc. For them, will the distribution go down and will the visibility on the existing behemoths go down? Or is that a trend that is already happening?
As in, say that again.
For distribution of people who are expert creators, right? In the sense that they are making fashion hauls or unboxing videos of gadgets, will the distribution go down because of Instagram and YouTube moving towards reels and shorts?
Go down का तो पता नहीं यार, but I know that कि वो करने से number तो ऊपर जाते. Okay, it's the obvious secret in the room now कि reel बनाओ. जनता वाइड एंगल वाले वीडियोस को भी रील पे डाल के, रील में आधा ब्लैक रहता है, फिर वो वाइड वीडियो भी डाल के रील में डाल के अपलोड कर रही है. अभी यूट्यूब ट्रेंडिंग पेज पे शॉर्ट्स भी आने लगे अभी, राइट? लाइक मैंने परसों यूट्यूब ट्रेंडिंग पेज क्लिक किया, बोला देखते क्या दिख रही है इंडिया, फिर देखा तो शॉर्ट्स भी है यहाँ पे, राइट? यूट्यूब ट्रेंडिंग पेज बिकम, इट्स बिकम लाइक स्क्रोलिंग इंस्टाग्राम रील्स ओनली. तो डाउन का तो पता नहीं, पर सबको अडेप्ट करना तो अभी पड़ेगा ही, बिकॉज unfortunately this dumb brain can't focus on anything for more than 15 seconds, and it's just far too much dopamine load to be taken. So if you don't do it, and you're still able to manage to get 8-9 minutes, you will reap the benefits of it through ads on YouTube. On Instagram was never a large video, like a long video platform anyway, and I think if you're able to keep someone's attention for 9-10 minutes, this is higher trust. So I think these two, I think there's slightly lower trust with reels, or you might have to work longer to do that. Discoverability is another way. In what context do you watch this person? Like there was a time where reel पे 3 million view तो आ ही जाएंगे, पर वो कैसे आए? जनता ऐसे ऐसे करते समय आप दिख गए, एल्गोरिथम ने आपको व्यू दे दिया, but that doesn't mean you're necessarily memorable. So while creators chase that to get the numbers, it won't necessarily lead to sticky distribution or eventually being able to monetize that audience.
The other point I would add there is shelf life of YouTube content is slightly longer because discovery is through search in a lot of cases, while
Yes.
the shelf life is shorter. So the graph drops down quickly in Reels versus in YouTube.
Correct. Reel में ऐसे 2 दिन, आज 1 million, कल 6 million, फिर अगले दिन वापस 7 million पे आके सेटल होता है. It's like that.
There is one thing that I want to add. I think Tanmay and Pratik have covered 95% of it, which is something that I'm surprised that not enough people talk about it. So this is basically founders and PMs like me to blame. A lot of times, so just to be clear, for UGC platforms, product managers and CEOs don't really have that much control once you get to enough critical mass. But you do have control over one thing: how much reach or visibility do you give to what kind of content, what kind of feature.
Correct.
If as a founder or PM something is important for me, either because of just like PR hype or fundraise, or because of whatever reason, better monetization, like I just like it for whatever reason, I can always give it extra visibility. And people somehow have shorter memory and they forget. Like people forget, for example, how the entire thing about video becoming a big thing came about was because Facebook lied about its matrices. They started, first of all, giving 6,000, 7,000x reach.
Correct.
To video. Second,
Correct.
they still lied.
Correct.
Same thing essentially is happening with short form video with Instagram and YouTube both. They are giving you artificial visibility, which is extra compared to what if you were doing something which was native to the platform. There's nothing wrong with it. It's a business strategy. The thing is, as a creator, you have to understand that that's a business strategy. At some point in time, that strategy will go away. So like 4 or 5 years back, for example, if you're running ads on Facebook, on a text ad and a video ad would do like, I don't know, roughly about 7x, 8x better, which was insane if you're doing performance marketing. Today, it's roughly about 6%, 7% better. Give it another year and I can guarantee it would be worse, if not worse, then at least at the same level.
Insane.
You can't rely just on the whims and fancies of platforms. So you should take advantage of what they are doing, because like, so for example, right now YouTube is focusing so much on shorts, you'd be an idiot not to take advantage of that because that's free traffic. But don't assume that just because YouTube is saying that and just because you are getting that adrenaline rush, okay, suddenly I used to have 100,000 views and suddenly I have 3 million. So now my new base is 3 million. That's not how it works.
Correct. भाई तुम एक प्लेटफॉर्म सर्वाइव कर जाओ 10 साल, उसी में विन है. YouTube तुम सर्वाइव कर लो, Instagram सर्वाइव कर लो 10 साल, because every year the algorithm meta changes, right? Like it's pretty insane. The shorts thing, Ranjeet, you're absolutely right. Creators do it for a burst because there is status attached to subscribers, but those views don't necessarily mean a lot. Snacks और meal है यार, main course और snacks ही है. तुम दिन भर snacks थोड़ी काम चलाओगे.
Actually, if you know that, so if you know it's snacks, it's awesome. But if you start kind of getting confused, so for example, if you stop doing like your actual, let's say, unpacking videos as you was talking about and only focus on shorts, you are essentially trading your livelihood or your like long-term audience for your short-term gain.
Great example of what Ranjeet said was when Facebook was doubling down on Facebook Live. Remember there was a phase of 6 months where everybody was doing BuzzFeed-esque videos of putting rubber band on watermelon, and then that infamous picture of Mark Zuckerberg talking with all the angry emoji around his face. That happened. I remember at that time, like live became this massive thing, and now where is it? What happened? Where did it go? Yeah, absolutely right. Ranjeet has got it spot on.
So, in fact, now that we're talking of formats, Kanav had an interesting point. So, his question was: is the new era of web going to see a shift from creating videos, audios, text, etc., to like more immersive experiences, more interactive? And I think Ranjeet, you'll probably have great things to share from the experience.
I have one answer. Yes, obviously. Maybe 2 words. Yes, obviously. As an idea, that's going to happen in 1 month or 1 year or 10 years or 30 years. But is it going to happen? Of course, it's going to happen.
And what does that immersive mean for you? How do you define like?
So the beauty of new technology is that most of the times you don't know till you actually see it. And a lot of times it's not even about having better tech or better products, it's about getting to liquidity fastest. So like whatever formats gets to enough liquidity where there are enough creators creating and enough consumers who like it, it becomes a new format. It's impossible to say in advance that which format is going to be successful, which is not, because just like consumer internet, like it's not about the best product that's always going to win. It's like the product that gets to like enough liquidity quickly enough.
But there's going to be more activity from the consumer side, right? Like that's what I understand. That not just consuming, but like being active contributors.
That I can say with absolute certainty. I don't know when that's going to happen. I don't know what it would look like, but will it happen? It will.
Interesting. So, maybe let's move to the next question. Nikunj, you picked on something which Tanmay had briefly mentioned about able to invest in like creators' future earnings. Would you want to spell out your question?
Yes, so Tanmay, we discussed about this investing in creators, and B also about Instagram putting in the subscribe button. So wanted to understand the impact and where the future lies in, and where can the two coexist, what kind of mindset will do A versus B, will one of them win, and so on and so on. In terms of I personally am building a startup on the premise buy subscribe when you can invest. So what is the creator mindset and what is the consumer mindset from both these perspectives, considering they'll probably coexist 2 years down the line?
Investing in creators makes sense in America, where there is possibility of a creator unicorn. Mr. Beast $1 billion का creator बन सकता है. Logan Paul ने भी drink launch किया जो कोई दिन Walmart खरीद सकता है, right? You want to see your stock reach certain heights, right? What are you going to do with the 0.1% of 10 crore rupees, right? Like, what I'm saying, like, so for that to happen, you need unicorn creators in India, if creators can do that. So I think first let creators make wealth. I think already like that itself is hard enough. Like एक हफ्ते पहले I invested in a couple of startups और वो Twitter पे news बन गया और already 4 tweet आ गए मुझे, तुझे क्या पता ये कर, तू बड़े पैसे आ गए इन्वेस्ट कर रहा है, पहले होने दो, इंसानों को वेल्दी होने दो, फिर इन्वेस्ट करो उनमें. So I just don't see, like, a lot of the copycat models don't work in India, man. They're two very, very different models. Subscription on Instagram, I think, is huge. It's powerful. I think it solves a lot of, also, first of all, about time, right? Like, this is the thing, one of the questions that someone wrote here was, how does Web3 change it? I think most of, at least with YouTube, every time I put in effort, I know YouTube at least is paying me something, right? With Instagram, it's like, kya diya Instagram ne? Outside of your usual 10 creators ko relit, #relit, feelit के लिए पैसे देके वो लोग बनवाते हैं, बाकी क्या दिया Instagram ने इन creators को जिन्होंने बनाया है ये? नहीं दिया कुछ. So I think it's high time that they had this feature, and I think you'll see thousands of creators quit their jobs to be able to do this full time.
Then we should also talk about the Web3 angle that you touched on, that the social tokens companies that are being created in US, what do you think of them in India? And that is connected to investing in creators, really. What is your thought there?
Yeah, I think more than that, more than the creators launching that, I think creators launching that road token, more than a financial this thing, I think it's a great way to spin up a community, right? For a lot of folks, those tokens are a great gamification way. I think India, regulations are still unclear, so don't know how you can do that. DAO regulations are still unclear, but I think it'll be an interesting way for people to spin up a community. And if imagine something like that gets integrated with a Discord like platform, right? Then you have a true back office, and then you're truly able to to pay for productivity of your audience. So yeah, I think we're heading towards that. But don't want to necessarily comment on that. What is interesting to me though is platforms like BitClout, right, where my audience is mine, and the more audience that I generate for the platform, the more upside I get in the platform. That to me is more interesting, right? Again, it points back to the same thing. Jin creators ne banaya platform, share the piece of the upside with them as they deserve to. Which, this is the whole centralization, decentralization thing. Decentralized platforms might not necessarily work either because you need centralized vision to make a product really good and blah, 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 blah. We'll see how this plays out. Yeah.
So, moving on to Rohit's question, I think this ties very well with our topic title as well, about mapping the creator economy. Rohit, your question around the types of creators and categories, can you go about?
Yeah, hi, Anagh. Hi, Tanmay.
Hi.
So this is one of the basic questions around the creator. Basis people, what people do, we understand. Some people code, some people do marketing, sales. But when we say creator, what exactly do we mean by that creator? And given the trend that we have and the future, which category of creators is going to rule this particular segment? So are
एकदम ही
creators,
macro चलेगा
influencers,
यार,
are
रोहित भाई.
creators, educators?
फुल एग्जिस्टेंशियलिज्म हो गया कि क्रिएटर क्या है, कौन ही है क्रिएटर. Ranjeet, you want to take this?
I don't think I can. It's like asking, for example, what is a founder? What kind of founders are actually, what kind of sectors are founders starting from?
No, sorry, Ranjeet, to cut you off. Probably let's concretize this a bit. If I understood Rohit's question correctly, it's about what is it that creators are going after. We know that they are creating content and probably they'll monetize with it. But are they selling something? Is the intention to influence someone? Is the intention to educate someone? And if we look at these three angles,
From my point of view, right? Like creators are essentially people who create something. It's like saying builders or founders or product managers. It's like builders are people as well, and they have different motivations, different aspirations. It's impossible to say that founders build companies because they want money. Do they want to influence someone? Do they want to be powerful? Well, some do, and some don't. Like it's impossible to answer because different people will always have different motivations. Maybe somebody has a crystal ball and they can predict which kind of creators are going to be more powerful than the others, but that is exactly like saying which sectors are going to be more successful in a startup ecosystem versus others. Maybe some people do. I am just not qualified enough to answer. Neither for creators nor for founders.
Another question, by the way, which I think is interesting here is, as a creator, Abhishek has asked this, what special financial products would creators want that would help you build more, build better? Did you face difficulties when you started, or do you see awesome creators getting stuck because they don't get those special financial products?
Even I would like to hear that answer to that.
What financial products would creators like to see?
Just one small thing. We have invested in a company called Pixel, which is building credit card for creators, because a lot of creators were telling, "Yaar, मैं पैसे तो कमाता हूँ. I make 1 lakh rupees a month and I'm reasonably rich, but I don't get credit card because unlike normal 1 lakh rupee salary employee, I don't have a salary slip, or people don't think my income is dependable, and then that's why I don't get credit cards, or I'm not able to show it off in some sense." But
इस सवाल पे क्रिएटर कौन है, ये डिबेट करना चाहिए. Depends on the type of creators, man. Like I mean, there are different verticals, right? Like financial products for finance creators would be very different from beauty, makeup, lifestyle would be very different from comedy and entertainment would be very different from, something else. So there's no direct way to answer that. But if I know that some things are definitely not necessarily for a creator, right? Like I think one card won't work for everyone. ये तो बहुत clear है from day one. Apart from that, I think there's no real thing that I can't think of something off the top of my head that a creator would need necessarily that anybody wouldn't necessarily just need. I think some, these are not financial products though. These are more.
I think there's one thought which came, which is lending to new creators based on social metrics.
lending to new creators based on social metrics. Again, the question to ask is, do new creators necessarily need that? And if they like, क्या लगता है फोन पे तो सब कुछ बन जाता है यार, फोन पे कर सकते हो तुम, right? Like you can there's nothing, I just don't see how you can't do something on the phone now. There are just so many tools. You can run a full YouTube channel with just a phone and an app. So I just don't see.
Another suggestion is invoicing and tax compliance.
Invoicing, taxing, that zone I think is super useful, because unlike a salaried employee, that part is still very high friction. Need for a manager, I think if you solve for all things that a manager / agent would do, creators would still want manager, because that's a status play and not necessarily a efficiency play, right? So I think that can be super useful. Right now, like my managers, they deal with a lot of this stuff, keeping a track of everything, etc., which I think that tool can help. पर फिर एंड में जाके मैनेजर ही लेना उसे, तो क्या ही करना है, वो तो होना ही है. If you can marry the two, that would be interesting, right?
Human assisted software.
नहीं, एक मैनेजर रहता है तब लगता है कि तुम कोई कुछ उखाड़ा है तुमने लाइफ में. क्लाइंट को किसी एक बंदे से बात कराओ, फिर मुझे डायरेक्टली बात नहीं करना है इससे, तुम बात करो.
Talk to my manager.
I loved it. I loved it. Tanmay started by saying it's for efficiency. पहले ही बोल दिया, it's not for efficiency, it's for status, which is
it's true. I mean, why are we? I wouldn't lie about this, right? So yeah,
Ranjeet,
manager as SaaS. Status as a service, I said the real SaaS here.
There are a few questions which have come up about inducing users to become creators. And since Pratilipi has largely has grown on the back of UGC, how do you think of this? Like, what can a platform do to induce, and because that is where essentially the growth engine of the creator economy comes from, right? That consumers of today become creators of tomorrow. So what can a platform do to induce that?
I think honestly, you don't really have to do too much about that to organically happen. If you don't want to, so if it is a true marketplace like YouTube or Instagram, it's not PUGC. It's not that I'm paying creators to create content. It's like actual UGC. And a lot of times people don't really differentiate between the two. So if you're not paying the creators are, at least some unaffiliated creators are creating content on their own. Once you get to enough liquidity, some of your consumers will start becoming creators almost on their own organically. You can accelerate the progress a little bit in some different ways. The first of all, of course, is that can you make content creation easier? So obviously it's far easier to do that on, let's say, Instagram or TikTok versus it is to do on, let's say, Twitch, for example. Simply because of what does a content even mean? On Twitch, the expectation is that you're in front of camera, you're talking about something for 3 hours. That's just so much higher barrier. Other could be like, if I'm a new creator, do I get some new audience as soon as I post something? So something that, for example, YouTube, it seems like strategically doesn't do at all. Like you are a new creator, you upload something, you get 0 views. You keep on doing that for like a year, you still get like very close to 0 views. Versus a lot of new age platforms, TikTok being the best example, would essentially just give you like almost a serendipitous lucky boost in the first 2-3 months, that if you're posting every day for 30, 40, 50 days, one day suddenly you'll get somehow lucky where you will get like 1 million views, or maybe not million, but like 10,000 views. So you're just basically giving them that rush a little bit sooner. So there are a bunch of other gamifications around this that you can do to basically accelerate that journey, but you don't have to. Like YouTube doesn't do anything around this. Twitch doesn't do anything around this. And even then consumers will become creators simply because like they are consuming that content again and again and again. And at the end of the day, everybody's a storyteller. Like who in this audience doesn't feel like someday they would be a part of a panel like this where they would be as a speaker? Like it's natural human tendency. Whenever you read a book, if you've read enough books, you'll always feel like, dude, like one day when I have time, I want to write a book on my own as well. It's natural human tendency. If you make it easy enough, people will create content as well. Which is also why, by the way, I did not like the creator question, because at the end of the day, all of us are creators. It's just that some of us either don't have the skills or the audience or the discipline or just coincidence.
यार मुझे एक सवाल पूछना है for you guys as VCs, right? इंडिया में OnlyFans क्यों कोई फंड नहीं कर रहा है? Number 1 creator platform है, $300 million profitable, right? I've asked this to everyone, saying why is the taboo around it, or is it not like why isn't there an Indian OnlyFans?
I would say partly taboo and partly you don't know how regulations will play out if you back such a platform. So,
सारे
sorry?
क्रिप्टो वाले को तो फंडिंग मिल गई despite not knowing how regulations will play out.
तो दोनों का combination नहीं हुआ था.
And then effectively Raj was building OnlyFans ना, Raj Kundra was building OnlyFans only.
अच्छा.
तो जो प्रोडक्ट था उनका जिसके कारण
प्लेटफॉर्म का नाम क्या था?
जी मेरे पास नाम लिखा हुआ है, जे से नाम कुछ था, जलवा झील ऐसा कुछ नाम था. तो Raj Kundra was building OnlyFans of India.
मैंने लिखा है WhatsApp group is India's OnlyFans. That's true.
That's true.
Not sure if there are enough Indian creators wanting OnlyFans. Not true, dude.
No.
That I won't agree with.
Supply और demand में कोई दिक्कत नहीं है.
So I think we are ending. We are close to 1 hour. Maybe two fun questions that came from audience I do want to ask. One is to Tanmay as to why there is no tanmaybhat.com.
Why is there no Tanmay? I don't know. Just Google my name. You'll see everything that I do. Why do you need a tanmaybhat.com? It's like saying Tanmay, तेरे पास visiting card क्यों नहीं है? नहीं है. क्यों जरूरत है अभी? अब जरूरत नहीं है.
Nice.
जिसको पहुंचना होता है वो पहुंच जाता है. Also, I think कोई तो squat कर रहा है उस domain पे. मुझे पैसे नहीं देने उसको.
I think there was an interesting one for Ranjit. When are you launching a platform to invest behind Pratilipi ex-employees? People want to invest in the platform itself.
I don't think Pratilipi ex-employees will ever have to now go to a platform to raise. I think thankfully with the Kutum and Animal, now I think Pratilipi folks themselves will do the seed round.
Good.
That's phenomenal.
Good to hear that.
That's awesome. Syndicate खड़ा करते रंजीत आ जाओ.
रंजीत भाई बोला syndicate की जरूरत नहीं होती. ऐसी लाइन लग जा रही है आजकल.
I just meant by the way कि Pratilipi की ही जनता invest कर देती है. Like inmates themselves put in enough money where you don't need a seed round.
That's good. That's good.
Awesome. In the interest of time, I think phenomenal discussion. Thank you, Ranjeet. Thank you, Tanmay. We covered a lot of topics. We covered creator problems. We covered creator monetization. We touched upon thoda sa Web3 in India for creators. We touched upon the financial problems of creators, and I think good insights there. We talked about the tools like Ru91 and WhatsApp paywalls. We talked about Discord, and I think very sharp way of saying it, Discord back office hai creator guy. I never thought of it like that. I thought of it always like a platform, but usko tool ki tarah dekho, it's actually more beautiful. So very good discussion. Thank you very much, Tanmay, Ranjeet, and
Thanks,
audience
guys.
for joining. And just one small thing, we will have this conversation with new creators and new types of questions every month. So we'll be joining. So you should join next month as well, and we should have similar conversations going on. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining.